What's happening, everyone, and welcome back to the Pathways to Success podcast. I'm very excited about the guest we have on the show today, and he is a very successful young entrepreneur. He was featured in Inc. magazine's 2020 list of top 250 fastest growing privately held companies in Texas, which he ranked number 95. He's the founder and CEO at BuyBackHub, amongst various other successful enterprises. From Austin, Texas, Matt Cenca, welcome to the podcast, man. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast today, Julian.
Yeah, man, and thanks for coming up from Austin to be with me here.
Of course. I really wanted to come out here and do it in person after seeing your content.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate that. And just for some context, so Matt and I actually met, would it have been early 2019?
That sounds about right. Yeah, through a mutual friend.
Yeah, so I was speaking at a conference in Austin, visiting my friend Anthony, who was also a guest on the podcast, Facebook engineer. Shout out to him. And I met you through, I guess we were just hanging out, right?
That sounds about right. So, yeah.
And here's why I really wanted you on the show is because of all the people I met over the past 5 years, I misjudged you, man. Because I remember the context, too, because we were actually on the rooftop of, I think, his apartment complex. It was a pool. You had your shirt off. You were ripped. You were drinking. You were loud, kind of obnoxious. And I was like, dude, who is this college douchebag, you know? But throughout the night, we started talking and learning about what you did and the path that you have traveled, your successful enterprises. And I started learning about your philosophies. And I was like, this isn't an extraordinary young man, and I need to understand what makes him tick, what makes him successful, and I got to share that out because it's a very inspiring story. So thank you for being on.
I'm so excited to be here to share this story. I think it's going to be a great one.
Yeah. So, well, let's kind of start at the beginning in terms of like what you're doing today. What exactly is BuyBackHub?
So BuyBackHub is a mobile device wholesale and export company. What we do is we buy devices almost exclusively in damaged condition, and we bring them into our facility, and we essentially buy them sight unseen, basically untested. We just know that we know they're damaged, but we don't exactly know what's wrong with them. We'll bring it in, and we'll do our basic testing on them. We'll key functions. Does it power on? Does it have this lock? Is it this? Is it that? And then once we sort it out into some more categorized, lots, then we sell it from there in a more how should I say this? In a more uniform way, because we receive it in such a smorgasbord, if you will. Yeah. So we do perform basic testing and sorting at the facility, and then sell from there. And
what kind of mobile devices? Tablets, phones. Like what is that?
Definitely do mostly phones. I would say like 95% phones, and maybe like 5% other, which are like tablets, laptops, other things that might fall into the small electronics category.
Okay. And how do you acquire the inventory? Where does it come from?
I've been having this business since 2014 is when it officially started. So we've, gone through many suppliers over the years, right? And you just kind of weave out, the good ones and the bad ones. And then, from there you find your good group. And, that's it. We roll with today.
So you source the product that way, and then you fix it, and then you sell it, I guess, to the retail market, or how does it work?
So we actually we used to do in-house fixing and refurbishing. Yeah. We actually no longer do that. It's basically just a key function test and sort facility now. Oh, so we actually did away with internal or in-house repairs in early 2019. We took that part of the business away and just went more to focusing on volume as opposed to maximizing the profit on each device by fixing it. Yeah. So we became more of a true wholesale company there in 2019.
And explain to our listeners who may not understand the concept of that. When you wholesale, who do you sell to?
So it's all business to business. We acquire business to business, and we sell business to business, right? So we'll purchase it in a lot of maybe, anywhere from 500 to 10,000 phones at a time, right? But then we'll sell it out to smaller wholesalers or retailers or refurbishing companies, maybe around 100 phones to one guy and 500 phones to another guy. We break it down and sort it out to smaller businesses.
How did you come up with this idea? How did you first get the idea for this and start this company?
So when I was 15, I actually started buying and selling phones on Craigslist.
Oh, wow.
And at school, yeah. I don't know. I think I saw my dad was selling stuff on eBay, and I was like, I think I started buying when the first iPhone came out, I'd buy stuff like that, and I'd buy calculators at school and stuff, and I'd just flip it on eBay. It was a real simple concept, right? It's this most basic concept in business: buy for one, sell for two, and that's exactly what I was doing. And then slowly over the years, that kind of evolved into, what it is today.
Amazing. Did you come from a family of entrepreneurs? Like, did you have influences or?
I would not say that I really had a family of entrepreneurs. My dad had a business when I was younger, but we'll just say that business ceases to exist.
Okay, sure. So I'm curious always, like, what percent of the results do people create sort of like nature versus nurture, right? So did you always have kind of that spirit? I guess, tell me about that.
Well, I guess when I was young, something my mom told me. She was like, "You always loved money." She was like, "You were always, when relatives would come over, like, hey, do you have any money for me? Do you like?" I was always obsessed with the idea of money. I always liked it.
Interesting.
And I don't know. I guess the entrepreneurial spirit, kind of just came about from the the love or the infatuation with money, right?
Sure.
And so. They always say money is the motivator, right? So that's what got me started into just the reason I did it in the first place. And then from there, that entrepreneurial spirit and lifestyle just kind of evolved and developed from there.
I'm curious. So money, at that age, what did it mean to you? Why do you think you came to like it so much?
Well, I mean, it was many years ago. I mean, that was about 13 years ago when I was 15, right? So I can't really tell you exactly what was going through my head. But I mean, I think that the reason that money infatuates most people is for what it represents, which is I call them freedom coupons, man. You know what I mean? So it represents freedom to me, and that's probably what made me love it so much. Just that inspiration to live free.
That is exactly what I'm digging for, right? Because like when I ask people what is success, they come up with all sorts of like definitions, and really it is subjective, but ultimately it starts to come down to sort of a feeling or a personal value. And you said freedom, and I share that. That's why I started my entrepreneurial journey, because I wanted to do whatever I wanted with whoever at any time. And it seems like it represented to you autonomy.
Right.
That's really awesome. I'm curious. So was that the first just kind of enterprise of sort of practicing entrepreneurship, was sort of flipping things on eBay? Or
Yeah, that was when it all started. So
yeah. And when you said money, that also is a measure of success or progress in your life. And you just recently bought a Lamborghini, is that right?
That is correct. I did just purchase a Lamborghini.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, 7 years coming. I wanted that car ever since I was in college. I don't know. I always told people I was going to get a Lamborghini.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's never the right time to make a purchase like that. Like this ridiculous, depreciating asset that you could purchase, that you just do it out of like love and passion. And you just, it's never the right time to make a purchase like that. But I found that, found myself in a good position to do it, financially ready to make the move for a few years now. And then when this whole COVID thing hit, obviously exotic cars, right? They're obviously not selling so hot.
There you go.
So the market started to come down, and the opportunity just presented itself in front of me. And I said, this is it. I'm pulling the trigger.
Matt, you're 28, right?
I'm 28.
What do you know about yourself for sure that you are great at? What would you say are your unique talents and abilities, your superpowers that have allowed you to create this success?
Organization.
Okay.
Absolutely super important. I preach this to everybody and anyone who ever asks me about business. Organization is critical. I would say dedication is super important, right? Commitment and, staying and focus, right? Dedication and focus on the task at hand. Understanding where you want to be and where you are. Identifying the path that you need to take to get there. And then focusing in and seeing, get your blinders on and just start hitting that path, man.
And since you were 15 and you started your first enterprise, would you say that, was there like an event that sort of inspired you to start doing this, or was it just kind of like the way that you were, would you say?
Well, it's actually kind of interesting how this all came about. And I guess we're going to get a little bit personal here.
If you're okay with that. Yeah.
So I was doing this when I was 15, buying and selling. And then for a while, I actually stopped because I actually attended 3 different high schools. And a lot of the issues that arose at the first 2 high schools that I no longer attended were because of this buying and selling. It was a little bit of, a new industry at the time, electronics resale, right? So people would, especially admins at the school, viewed what I was doing as a little bit shady.
Yeah.
So I ended up having to go to 3 high schools. And then when I got to my 3rd high school, I was like, I said, you know what, let me just take a break from this because it doesn't seem like it's agreeing, with those around me.
You had to go to 3 high schools because they didn't like what you're doing and they expelled you?
Yes.
Get out of town.
Well, from one of them. The other one was
Yeah.
a public high school, so
Sure.
it was like they couldn't really expel me, but there was some pressure. So I ended up at like this all boys Catholic high school.
Yeah.
After that, and I said, you know what, let me just put my nose down and step out of that and just get my high school degree and get it over with. And then I eventually went into college, and I wasn't doing it in college for my first year, but I also wasn't going down the best path personally during my college years. And I had this really traumatic event happen to me my sophomore year in college, where my roommate in my dorm actually drunk drove himself into a tree and died.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And the story doesn't actually stop there. So he died on, I believe it was April 5th. God, I can't remember the year now. But the following day, well, I had found out the next morning, right? So the same day, but that evening, a young lady, it was her birthday. And she was like, oh, come out with us. It's my birthday. Just get your mind off things, so on and so forth. Long story short, I ended up going, and she had drank too much, and she needed to go to sleep, basically. So I had brought her back to the room that I was staying in, with my roommate who's no longer with us. And she was throwing up in the toilet, and eventually she just like stopped. And I heard it, and I went in there, and I checked her like pulse, and she wasn't breathing, like she didn't have a pulse. So I picked her up over my shoulder, and I brought her like into the center of the room. And I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, she just like, so I called 911, and they were like, sir, you need to administer CPR. So I'm like on the floor here, like, pumping, I don't know what I'm doing, but like pumping this girl's chest and like giving her mouth to mouth. And she, mind you, she had just been like throwing up in the toilet. And like, it's like my dead roommate's, bed is right here next to me, and just a crazy situation. And eventually I remember I hit her right in the chest, and she opened her eyes, like came to it. And then she looked at me, and then her eyes like rolled in the back of her head, and she started having a seizure. Dude, wild times, I know. Finally, the ambulance got there, dude. We whip it over to the hospital. And like, I have her phone at this point, so I'm trying to call like parents, friends, whatever.
Yeah.
And we get there, and I don't know how long I was waiting in the hospital when we got there, but eventually, like, friends and family showed up, and she actually had this thing with her. I believe it's her kidneys or something, which she shouldn't have been drinking, and she didn't really know about it because it was like she's very young and in college, and I guess it makes her seize if she overconsumes alcohol. Anyways, she actually ended up living through the experience. So I had basically just like lost a life of a friend and like saved the life of a friend all within 24 hours.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it was it was something, let me tell you. Definitely a life-changing experience. So after that had all happened, I went.
Are y'all still friends?
Okay,
yeah. You saved a life, man. You're a hero.
I know.
That's crazy, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, but it really changed my view on everything. I went home for maybe like 3 days after that just to reflect, because I was just so like mentally like, what just happened? And I kind of just realized that like there's a lot more to life, you know what I mean? And then just, coasting day to day and partying in college. And, there's still a little bit of that spirit in me, obviously, like you talked about when we met. It's still in there somewhere. But I realized that there's more to life, and it's really about leaving a legacy, you know what I mean? And doing something to, improve yourself, improve the world, and doing something that you believe in, and achieving freedom. It just, doing something great with yourself. And I said, you know what? I think that what I'm meant to do is go back and do this buying and selling of electronics. It's something, that I came up with. I'm great at it, and I think I can turn it into something amazing. And that was really the whole jump off point of when I really started to just go at it as a career.
So there was an event that sort of made you realize what is important in life, and then that led you back to this sort of vocation. Is that right?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So how would you define what is important in life? What is success to you, Matt?
What is success to me?
Yeah.
Happiness. Achieving happiness. Achieving a state of balance, right? A state of balance where you just feel content and happy that where you're at. You're not seeking for anything more, right? you're just in a state there. You're just like, I'm here. I've made it. This is exactly where I need to be. And that's true success to me.
And what do you know for sure that has brought you happiness?
What has brought me happiness? Well, I always say my happiness is the 3 B's, or I guess the 4 B's if you include balance. But I say brain, body, and bank account, right? I always want to have balance between my brain, my body, and my bank account, right?
Yeah.
So brain, right? I always want to be in a great state intellectually and mentally, right? I want to be sharp. I want to be smart, but I also want to be, anxiety-free, depression-free. I want to feel happiness and peace of mind, right? Make my brain satisfied. Body, of course, brain will always follow the body. It's a super important interlock or connection there. But I love, fitness, healthy lifestyle. I think if you keep your body bright, your brain will follow. And then, of course, bank account or business, whatever you want to call it. I mean, that's what I love to do. I love business. I love entrepreneurship. So that's my passion. So I like to have a balance between all 3. You don't want to be like a 10 out of 10 businessman, but a 5 out of 10, in your health or something along those lines. Right? You want to be like a nice balance between all the things that you find important. And mine's just, brain, body, bank account. That's just mine, right? You need to find your 3 B's, or you need to find, your things that you want to bring balance to, right? Some people like family is really important to them, or religion, right? You just need to find the things that make you reach that level of happiness that I was talking about, and then just find balance in between all of them.
Where do you think most people go wrong in finding that happiness?
Thinking they're going to find happiness in what others tell them will make them happy.
Wow. And how do you see it amongst people in your age group, would you say? How do you see that sort of mistake? Like, how do you know that is something? Like basically allowing other people's perceptions or expectations to dictate your own happiness, right?
Right. I mean, well, we live in a 2020, right, where everyone's perception is apparently directly correlates to everyone's happiness, right?
Yeah.
So the more followers you have, or the more likes you have, the more you feel loved and appreciated, and that's apparently what brings people happiness. It's the digital day and age. But I think that a lot of people are, my age, are just, how do I say, they easily fall into this, I guess it's not just my age group, but I think a lot of people get sold on the American dream. That's what I think. They get sold on this white picket fence, work your 9 to 5, have the dog, have the kids, work 50 years of your life, and maybe you'll retire and enjoy it for 10 when you're old, And they buy into this, and they just think that this is as good a life as I'm going to get, and this is something that I'm going to work the rest of my life to achieve. And they think that, that's what's going to bring them happiness, going down this path, this preconceived path of happiness, when in reality, they never take a step back to realize, oh, shoot, I have to trade, the next 50 years of my life, working and answering to somebody else, just to maybe enjoy the last few years of relaxing on a beach somewhere. And that's not what it's about, man.
Yeah. So let's talk exactly about that path, right? Did you end up graduating from college?
I did. My mother is a school teacher and now a principal, so she would have killed me.
Okay, you graduated. Okay. So how did you come, and I feel like I have a sense already, but how did you come to decide that for sure you were going to stick to business and not go find a job?
So I had to declare my major at one point in college, right? And
what was that?
I actually majored in political science.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Was that an actual interest, or was it just something that you wanted to get through school?
Oh yeah, just knock it out.
Okay.
It was like super easy, and I was just like, all right, I have enough. I'll just get through it, whatever. Because I was running my business in college, that's what I wanted to focus on. Yeah, I was just focusing on my business mostly the whole time through college. I was just kind of, coasting through the schoolwork. I knew that life wasn't for me. When I made the first jump into saying, okay, this is going to be my career path, it was about a month after I had graduated in 2014. Mind you, I'm from Boston. I went to school at the University of New Hampshire. After I had graduated, a business partner of mine, who's still my business partner here at BuyBackHub to this day, we we decided, we said, hey, are we going to, pursue this as a business, or are we going to just kind of let this be a hobby and go and, get jobs? Mind you, he had his degree in some advanced engineering thing. So he was a lot more set up than I was. And I think we sat down and we talked about it and we said, you know what, let's go for it. Let's move the whole thing down to Texas because, it was much better tax-wise for what we're doing and a lot better opportunities in Texas. Not to mention the weather is significantly better than Boston. Let me tell you.
You like the heat?
Oh my God, it's better than the snow 6 months out of the year.
That's right, yeah.
Oh my.
It is a contrast. Yeah.
Yeah. Never go to Boston. I don't like it. But anyways, we after probably 2 or 3 months after we were done, we packed up everything we had and we moved. Mind you, this company was being run out of my mother's basement at the time. We packed up everything we had in our 2 little Toyota Camrys in 2014 and moved down to Texas to make this our career path. And it's been, growing year over year ever since. And then, right where we talked about earlier, where we landed today for the top 250 fastest growing in Texas. So
that's awesome. So you do have a partner in the business. You said engineering, like computer science engineering?
I don't know what he did.
Yeah,
he's good with computers, but probably.
Okay. So I guess I'm always curious about partnerships and stuff. What would you say you bring to the business, and what does he bring? Would you say?
Oh man, people always say it's like yin and yang with the partnership. Yeah. I always say I'm the gas, he's the brakes. Yeah, I'm the go. Let's get it. And he's just like, well, hold on now. You don't want to be. You know what I mean? He kind of harnesses my, aggression a little bit. So that's how we balance each other out in the business.
Gotcha. Okay. What's your vision for the business?
My vision for BuyBackHub. I think that BuyBackHub has a lot of room to grow. Even though we are rated as one of the fastest growing companies in Texas right now, I still think there's a lot of room to take this company to many levels beyond where it is today. I'd ideally like to get in there and start doing contracts with the carriers directly, okay. Not to name names, but sure. The major carriers. Get some carrier contracts. That's about as far as cell phone resale, that's about as big of a contract as you can get, right? Doing a distribution for the major carriers. So I'm hoping to take the company in that direction here in the next couple of years, and let it grow, as it does. I think I try not to set I don't like to set out and be like, okay, this is definitely where we're going to go, because things change and factors change as you go along, right? So I kind of have this end goal way out there that I want to have, these direct carrier contracts, but I don't want to say, oh, it's going to go this way, A, B, C, D, because as a business evolves, right, it must adapt and change to get to that end goal. Yeah. So, and I think COVID is doing a hell of a job making businesses adapt to get to where they want to be, if they're surviving, that is, unfortunately.
How has your business been affected by COVID? How have you adapted?
So BuyBackHub had, been doing great through 19, and when 2020 hit and this whole COVID business, we had to make some adjustments, but no one was cut, no one was fired, furloughed, anything like that.
Awesome.
No one lost any hours. We stayed, everyone stayed fully employed the whole time, which was awesome. Yeah. And we operated in the black every month this year so far, so we haven't, slightly slower, of course, just because, factors around you, like your suppliers are being affected maybe, or your buyers are being affected. But nope, still not as profitable as the previous year, obviously, but still rolling full speed and in the black, so I'm happy about it.
Yeah. And you're also involved in a lot of other enterprises, ATX Capital Investments, physique bodybuilders. What else are you doing outside of buyback?
Okay. So I recently just opened this freight and trucking company out of San Antonio. I believe it's called the Safe Operator. I sent it to you. Safe Operators and Carrier Organization. Yeah. So what that is actually a freight brokering company that I am an equity holder in. There's a very smart kid out of San Antonio that brought me the idea. I actually met him through a mutual friend. And he brought me the idea, and I loved his vibe. I loved his personality. I loved, his concept. And I said, yeah, let's do this together. So right now it's we should be up and running, but we need some Department of Transportation licenses, and it's government, and they're moving so slow right now. So we're waiting on a few licenses, but that should be ready to launch here in a bit. ATX Capital Investments is basically my umbrella company for just doing, for lack of a better phrase, just whatever the heck I want.
Yeah.
So like, or it's kind of like my legal protection or my umbrella for what I do. So
Yeah.
you know, I've got some property flips that I'm doing under that company,
Cool.
right? You can use it for public equities like stocks, bonds, or or stocks and mutual funds, stuff like that. I use it for cryptocurrency investing. I use it for commodities investing like gold and silver. And I guess I also use it for private equity as well, like buying, like we just talked about with that safe operators agreement. You can kind of use it as that entity for that as well. So it just kind of exists for me to just like have fun with.
I also remember on social, you said that you're starting to build courses and you're teaching sort of the principles of success. Is that right?
Yeah.
What is that?
So I've been doing mentoring for ever since COVID hit, because a lot of people were home, right? And I was home, and I was like, oh, well, maybe like I can help, like, since they're not working, right? Maybe I can help them, show them how to generate income from home, or teach them, hey, this is how you manage your finances, or this is what you can do to get your, you see what I'm saying?
Okay.
So I started doing that online for a bit, and I said, oh, well, this is actually working out pretty well. And then, you know me, I'm big on organization, right? So then I started making diagrams. The more I did it, the more I would get into it. And now I'm thinking, well, I've got some experience with it, and I've got kind of the organized, pathway. So let me just, maybe I'll make it into a course, and then I can help, people in a lot more volume than just the one-on-one.
I love that. Is it mainly centered around personal finance?
I do it two ways. So I have for personal finance, just individuals who want to improve their personal situation. And then I have business finance. So people who are not necessarily business finance, but, just business mentoring, right? Someone who wants to start a business, someone who's help fixing their business, someone who wants to improve their business, so on and so forth.
A lot of different ways here. So let's start with the personal finance first, right? What do you know for sure if there's specific laws about finance or making money, keeping it, growing it? Just start sharing some philosophies with us.
Well, I think everyone's situation is different, right? So you can't just say what applies for me is not going to apply for, Joe Schmo next door.
Yeah.
I can't just say, hey, you should put your money in this, right? And it'll work out, right? Because we have different risk tolerance. We have different situations. Joe Schmo might have 5 kids, or he might be $50,000 in debt. He's got to get out of debt before he can even consider, making an investment, right? So I think each situation is definitely personal. I think the best way for anyone to get started in managing their finances is I always have this system. It's called the 4-column system, right? Ooh. So I lay out, I say, okay, now what are all your debts in the first column, right? So I say, who do you owe? How much do you owe them? And what is the interest rate that it's accruing at, right? And then we have your income, right? So what are your sources of income and how much is that monthly, right? Then we have your bills, right? We lay those out monthly, or I'm sorry, line by line. Who do you owe and how much is it every month? And then we have your... Wow, I can't remember my own column. I can't remember my own column right now. Yeah. Oh, assets.
Assets. Okay. Yeah.
What do you have that's of value, right? Whether it's hard cash or investment accounts or your car or whatever, right? So then what I like to do is the first thing I always tell anyone who wants to improve their personal finances, you go through that bills column, right? And just label each bill, either keep, remove, or reduce. Try to just get those bills down, right? Because it's, there's only 2 ways to increase net worth, right? You either need to make more or spend less, right? So this is the easy part, go through your bills and say, hey, this one I have to keep, this one I can eliminate, this one I can reduce. Right now we're already moving in the right direction, right? And then the next thing I like to look at is what's your debt, right? Like, who do you owe? How much do you owe, right? And like, what's our strategy going to be for this debt? And there's everything from people that I've worked with who are completely debt free, and then all the way up to people who are completely backwards and are almost needing to approach bankruptcy, right? And there's all these other strategies in between on how you're going to manage your debt. We won't get into it because it's a lot of situational for sure. And then the next thing I like to do is have people look at their assets and kind of see, okay, well, I have these assets here. How can I shuffle them around to work for me, right? You have people sitting there with, large amounts of cash in the bank, and it's just not doing anything for them, and they don't understand that you need to be putting that to work so that you can take those assets and basically turn them into something that's going to be in that income column. So yeah, getting those assets to work for them and get it into the income column. So, and then once we kind of shuffle around their assets and say, okay, well, this should be, maybe you put this in some investment or this in some retirement. And then I always like to tell them that we need to take something from that asset column that's in cash, and we need to invest it in ourselves, okay? We need to bring some of that cash over here to the income column, and everyone should be investing in themselves. Everyone should have at least one side hustle, one additional active stream of income, because these assets are being used to make passive streams of income, right? But I want to take some of their cash and bring it over here and make an active stream of income. And I always say, what are your hobbies? What are your passions? What do you love, right? And when they tell me, they say, oh, I like ABC, I then show them, okay, now this is how we make it into a business. This is how we monetize your passion so that you can do something you love and also turn it into a stream of income.
What is the most significant habit that you've started that has improved your financial position?
Most significant habit that I've started that's improved my financial position. Jeez, that's a tough question. I'll tell you one of them off the bat. I don't know if it's the most significant, but one of the habits that I do. A lot of people might think this is weird, but I actually only eat one meal a day. It makes me, it saves so much time, let me tell you. I eat one meal a day. It's super, makes me more efficient time-wise for sure, and I feel so much sharper during the day, actually, while I'm fasting. I feel like I'm in just a peak state of mind. So in that morning, a lot of people are like, oh, they don't perform well when they're hungry, right? Because they're used to eating that meal in the morning. For me, now, I don't even think about food until work is pretty much over, right? So I'm just like, dead focused on exactly what's in front of me at all times. So that's a great habit that I've adapted. I don't recommend anyone just jump right into changing their diet because of it. But intermittent fasting and the one meal a day has been a great factor. Another habit is, like I think I talked about this earlier, is organization. Every day when I sit down at my computer, I have my schedule in front of me. Everything's color coded, and it's by task in the order I need to do it. And I focus. And I know that it's from A to Z, right? Whatever's on that task list. I know if I finish that task list that day that I've done everything I can to be the most successful I can in my business that day. So I think that's a great habit. Organization and scheduling, focus, and sleep. Sleep and health
and health.
Yeah.
So when it comes to what are your perspectives like on savings? Like when should you start to save? Is it ever too soon, too early, or whatnot? What do you teach your clients?
The standard is, right, you need to have 6 months bills saved up, right? So that's kind of your security blanket, right? So I always say, usually this is kind of a blanket statement, but some deviation here and there. If we're not if we don't have 6 months bills, there, we're probably not ready to invest yet, because we need to invest that money in ourselves first, right? We need to make sure, in case anything happens, this big situation we're being in with COVID, a great example, is that we need to make sure we have that security blanket first. And then what I like to do is I actually like to look at their debt. And if their debt is accruing interest at a greater rate than I believe a standard stock market, investment could return. So for example, you've got people with credit card debt that's accruing 18% interest, right? And they're like, okay, I want to invest. I'm like, no. Because your standard market return is 8 to 10%. You don't understand. You're losing money by not paying off this bill. Exactly, right? Now, if they are, their interest rate is small, like less than market return, okay, then we're losing money by paying back your debtors. You should be investing the money. So I always like to say we need to get all your debts, over 8 to 10% interest paid off first, and we need to get 6 months savings first. Then we can start making moves to make passive income.
Give us some examples of how you invest in yourself.
Examples of how I invest in myself. I invest most of my profits in my business, back into my business. But it's a broad question, because investing in yourself can mean so many things. It's not just, a financial sense, right? Like you can invest your time in yourself, right? I think
How do you invest in your mind, Matt? Because there's very specific things that you're saying that I see commonalities in others. Is it books? Is it podcasts? Is it like, where do you get this? How do you develop this?
Oh man, you're gonna think this is this is interesting.
The weirder the better. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't believe in reading books.
Okay. We gotta talk about that.
Okay.
Why don't you believe in reading books?
I don't believe that reading books is as good as getting out there and experiencing what you need to experience yourself.
Okay.
I believe that if you want to do something, I'm just a trial and error guy. I'm just going to get out there and do it, right? So when I first started getting involved in real estate fairly recently, I didn't go and read a bunch of books and say, oh, this is how you do real estate, or go take a course. I just like, all right, I'm going to buy this house. Like, let's do it, I don't believe in learning from other people's accounts of their experience with a certain matter being as powerful as you directly experiencing the matter. And I think that, you just learn much better from experience. Why do they make these college kids go do internships before they go out into the work world, right? If the book was enough, then they should be able to jump right into it. But the book is not enough.
Yeah.
So experience trumps all knowledge you will ever, be able to obtain from any other, third party. Just being in it, man. If you go out there and you get burned, you stick your hand in the fire and you get burned, you go, oh, that burns. You're not going to do it again. You read about it in a book, you still might go try it out.
Is there any business leaders, anyone that inspires you that you sort of look up to?
Honestly, I kind of thought this question might come up, like who are your role models and stuff like that. And I thought about it, and I think the answer is no. I think that I want to live my own path. I want to live my own life, and I want my path and story to unfold as it does. I don't want to say, hey, I want to be like you, and you. I just want to be me, man.
Yeah. This is exactly why I wanted you on the podcast, man. Okay. You coach people into starting their businesses. One of the things that you said, what are your passions? Can you monetize any passion?
Yes.
Give us a little bit of context to that. Examples like, let's say somebody has an idea, right? What's the next step in taking an idea into business?
Generally, or do you want to use like a concrete example?
Let's do concrete.
Hit me. Anything. You said your question.
Oh, okay. So general isn't like, is there a specific thing? Okay, so first let's start general. Let's establish a principle first, right?
Okay.
So where would you start with that? You're coaching someone with an idea. Where do you go from there?
Okay, well, how far along is the idea is my first question, right? Is this just like, oh, I like to walk dogs, or they say, oh, I have a full business plan, right? So it kind of depends how far along. But let's just say that I'm coaching somebody that's, came to me and they said, oh, I'm looking for, personal finance help. And I said, okay, well, we need to invest in this active side hustle. And I say, what are your passions? First, I would say, okay, write out a list of your passions, right? And then from there, right, let's say they bring me 5 examples, and I'm looking down the list, and my brain just starts turning. Like, my brain just thinks business all the time, right? So they might say, I love to drink coffee, right? Just something completely weird off the top of my head. I'm like, all right, cool. Why don't we, set up a social media profile where we go around, right, and we do reviews for all these coffee shops, right? And we start getting a lot of clout, or, and getting sponsorships by these coffee shops and these coffee brands. And then before you know it, right, we've invested in the marketing for this to build up this social media network and profile. And you've got all the major coffee brands sending you their coffees and saying, hey, do a review for us and this and that. And that's, I don't know, just a kind of a concrete example. I think you can turn anything into a business. It's just a matter of, do you have someone who can look at any idea and, bring it to monetization? And I think that's just the type of brain I have, man.
Yeah. Can we talk about my example? Is that cool?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, awesome. So I'm a full-time speaker and also trainer, right? And COVID has definitely rocked my world because I make a living in front of audiences doing conference keynotes and things like that. But what I started to realize is that this whole virtual thing really is the market's accepting it now. And I'm getting these virtual keynotes and virtual trainings. And what I'm working on right now in my mind is the most comprehensive professional development program that creates empirical transformations by teaching the skills, habits, and values that are proven to create professional success. My background is recruiting. I've hired personally hundreds of top performers. I know their commonalities. I've coached thousands of people successfully into employment. So there's a lot there that I can work with, right? So what I'm trying to do is take all the pieces of my trainings and keynotes and build a curriculum. and turn it 100% virtual, right? So as of right now, I'm creating my MVP, my minimal viable product, alongside existing clients. And then eventually I want to take it into a big curriculum and then ultimately do business with the big companies out there like PwC, McKinsey, Ernst & Young, all the big management consulting companies. So given the puzzle pieces that I just gave you, what do you think my next step is?
So you're right now, and you're in product development, right? Research and development type of stage, right? So obviously, right, once you've finished your product development, the first thing that I would do is, now that you've had this product, right, you don't just take that product to market, right? And the next thing you want to do is probably go do market, survey data, right? Start giving it out for free, or going out, right, and testing the product, right? Because from there, right, you can start getting all this feedback, and from that feedback, you can kind of go back and work out the kinks from the feedback you've got, right? And then eventually, you're going to have this fine-tuned product from all this feedback that you got, and then you're going to come with your final product, right?
Yeah.
And now you have something that is not only something you believe in, but something that's been market tested and is going to perform well, which is great. So once you have a product like that is, tried and true and tested, right? Then you go to market, right? And I don't think you're going to have any issues marketing it because, here we are in your podcast. You have a great platform to market the product you're making. So from there, if you really want to pursue, right, you could start looking at, because you've never sold a product before, right? It's all been
service. Yeah.
Exactly, right? So this being your first product, right, you can use your product and your service kind of complement each other, which is great. You can use your service to market your product. But now, after that, you might say, oh, shoot, marketing a product is a lot different than marketing a service, right? So then you can start trying out different product marketing strategies as well, kind of branching out from there and seeing what sticks and what doesn't. Like I said, I'm a trial and error and experience guy, right?
Yeah.
I'm not let me read a book that's going to tell me how to market my product, right? I'm like, okay, well, I know there's XYZ strategies, so let's do XYZ and see what sticks. Yeah. And that would be that's how I'd do it.
I love it. Yeah. Matt, I want to close with a few more mindset things, because it seems like you, I share a quality about you in the sense that, very action oriented. I'll get as much information as I need, and sometimes hastily, right? And I'll just take a bunch of action. But I'm curious, how have you been able to develop a relationship with fear and act in spite of it?
I think when you first start a business, fear is at its, its peak point, right? When you first start your business, right? And then as you start, developing as a businessman and investor, right? The fear factor starts to diminish as you go along, right? You do your first, $5,000 deal in business and you're terrified, right? And then, that just becomes the norm. And then you do your first $20,000 deal and you're terrified, right? And that becomes, and then eventually, you're doing $1 million deal and you're just like, oh, it's just, another drop in the bucket, right? It just kind of gradually, fear will fade. It's really important that people can just push that initial fear of starting a company or getting on the correct pathway to success aside just in the beginning, just to get started, because it gets so much easier once you get over that initial hump to just get out there and do it. So I think that you just need to be bold and brave if you want to be successful and you want to live a life of freedom and happiness and entrepreneurship, that you just have to make that jump. You need to just put all those fears aside and make that initial jump to get over it, because it only gets easier once you get past that initial, speed bump. And acting in spite of fear, like you said, how to overcome it. It's, they say practice makes perfect, right? Yeah. So just that experience of just going through the motions and growing your business will definitely, put fear by the wayside as you go along. Yeah.
Results has a way of definitely curing fear. Like you act like more clarity, the more experience, the more confidence and competence you have, the more of a master of a craft that you become, right? So I love that. Matt, has there been any part of your story that we haven't talked about yet that is relevant to creating this personality and character and success that you are today?
I mean, as you might be able to tell, I'm pretty much unapologetically myself when I come out here.
I also want to mention that Matt also lost 100 pounds.
Oh, yes.
So the success, it translates in all aspects of who you are. And I love that. Yeah.
I definitely agree with that. The discipline to lose that weight is definitely similar to the discipline and the dedication it takes to become a successful entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I think that just goes to show you, like, it's all mindset, man. It's all, it's not just like, oh, I'm good at business, or, oh, I'm good at losing weight, or I'm good at this, right? If you're in the right mindset, then you can achieve anything.
Yeah. I love that. So close us out with any kind of parting advice. And again, it's all about the pathways to success. I created this purely as a passion project, really to, number one, to learn from incredible minds like yourself, but ultimately tease out the best practices from others to share and inspire other people to achieve their own success. So close us out with that. If you had some parting advice for all of our listeners and our viewers who want to do something great with their lives, what do you say to them?
Figure out what you love, and then just get out there and do it. No fear. Just do it. It's like a little shout out to Nike there.
I love it.
Yeah, just do it, man. That's it's that simple. You don't need any other advice or motivation. It's really that simple. Just do it.
I love it.
For sure.
Matt, this has been a true pleasure. I'm so glad to have met you. I'm sure we will be friends after this recording. I can't wait to see all of your future successes, and I'll definitely be following you. Tell our listeners and our viewers how to connect with you, how to follow you, how to support everything that you're doing. Share that with us if you would.
Sure. My social medias are, Instagram is and then my name, Matt Cenca, MattCenca. I have a Snapchat. It's Cenca02, Cenca02. My website is BuyBackHub.com. I'm on Facebook as well. So, if you'd like to connect with me, I'd love to hear from you about, any experiences you gained, or, anything you gained from my podcast, or, any entrepreneurial opportunities, that you'd like to work with me on.
Awesome. And we'll make sure to have all your contact information in the show notes. Man, this has been amazing. Thank you for coming on the podcast, man.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a great time.
And everyone else, thank you all for tuning in to another episode of The Pathways to Success. As always, make sure to subscribe, comment, and share. And we'll see you next time on the next episode of The Pathways to Success.